Welcome back, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show special edition. This is actually episode 118. We're doing an all-day podcast in support of Cigar Rights of America. Go to cigarrights.org. Also, make sure you visit stogiegeeks.com/blending for a very special blending seminar with Manuel from La Aurora. You get all the sticks that go along with the blending seminar. You can attend virtually. We're going to set up a camera next door, and we're going to broadcast virtually for those that pay for it for the low cost of $49.
$49.
StogieGeeks.com/blending. Make sure you sign up for that. I'll let you introduce our next special guest.
Yeah, so I guess, this is a person in the cigar media. He's become a very good friend of mine. And first of all, we got to, he's given us a lot of support, including a very great prize pack, which we'll talk about, which we've already mentioned. But we have Seth Geise from Seth's Humidor and Habanos Critic and What Embargo. So Seth, Paul in Rhode Island, how are you doing today?
Thanks, man. I'm doing great. You guys are doing well, I assume. Show's going well.
Well, I'm smoking a Hemingway Rosado wrapped Hemingway. I think it's a classic or a signature, one of the two, and it's awesome. I think it's lost a little bit over time. I handed Will a very special cigar that he had not smoked yet, which is sometimes hard to do. It's hard to find stuff that you haven't smoked.
No.
So I had to go really high end on the price point and really big on the size. Yeah. And get him a Davidoff Royal Salomon. What do you think of that cigar so far, Will?
This is an unbelievable cigar. Now, what I was telling folks is it's Davidoff, okay? If you are a Davidoff fan, you like that Davidoff Henke Kellner taste, this cigar is perfect.
It's not Nicaraguan Davidoff.
It's not a Nicaraguan Davidoff. I mean, it's more in that white label range. I'd say it's a medium-bodied, medium-strength cigar. Yep. It's got a really good creaminess to it. I'm getting some of those great hay notes in there. It seems like it's getting more complex and the flavors are building as we go along. I was talking to Nicholas, so I was kind of just getting started with it. But I got to tell you, you were talking about this as a Cigar of the Year candidate, and I could see why. Mm-hmm. I could see why.
What's the, did they talk about the tobacco in that blend, or did they give any of that information?
No.
No?
Yeah,
probably just old.
No, but we do know it. We do know right now it is the most expensive Davidoff, and it's soon to be the second most expensive Davidoff, from what we've heard with the Oro Blanco coming right now.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Seth, busy year for you. Okay, so Seth's Humidor going strong for 3 years. This year, you took an interesting change, I want to say, in that you launched a new brand with a lot of different facets, specifically geared at the Habanos and Cuban cigar market. So tell us a little about how that came about and where that's going right now.
It's one of those things why it came about. Gosh, I'd have to go back. I don't even know. First of all, I'm crazy enough to do that. It came about, was talking with, Logan from Cigar Federation, and he kind of said, hey, why don't you get involved with Catfish from Cigar Federation and do something on Cubans? Every once in a while, do like a little show. So I was like, yeah, let's introduce the two of us. So Catfish and I got together, and wow, made history. And then we started What Embargo, and then we started a website which is just dedicated to Cuban reviews, and some news, and then we started a forum. So it really quickly spiraled out of control. But yeah, it's all we do is we focus on Cubans, and there's a couple other sites out there, but that's where we wanted to put our main focus and attention.
So you have I guess there's three facets. I look at what you have. You have obviously the review site, which is separate from Seth's Humidor.
Yeah, completely separate, totally different brand.
You have a forum which people can interact and chat about Habanos.
Yeah. And
then you have which I think is a real entertaining podcast, the What Embargo podcast.
Yeah, then we have What Embargo, which is it's an entertaining times because it's very different than the non-Cuban market, which there's a lot of news and a lot of new releases popping up all the time. So it's kind of, and there's a lot of manufacturers you guys can talk about, but when it comes to Cubans, there's things to talk about, but there's definitely not as much. So you're kind of dependent upon looking at old Cubans and talking with other guys who smoke Cubans and getting opinions and so forth like that. So it's a lot of fun. And then you can just talk about fake stuff too, so which is,
I
which is
heard.
great.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of a point, the new Cubans. Now, I think it was accidentally I called it. Well, kind of somehow I wound up on your show unexpectedly. And I was, but it was a good
Last minute change up.
last minute change.
Typical one embargo.
Well, I'm actually, yeah. This was the one. Well, this was actually the one before that. So there was actually two. But the show I was on, you guys were actually talking about the new cigars coming out of Habanos this year,
Yeah.
and I was blown away in terms of this is a. I think it's. I felt when we were going down that list of cigars, it was a historic year for coming about for Habanos right now with the new cigars. Why don't you talk a little about what we're expecting to see now going into 2015? Because I think it's very different from what we've been used to.
Yeah, well, one thing that's, every year with Habanos, they're going to, they have their regional announcements, which they're regional editions, which go to certain countries. Then they have their annual limited editions. And then they do usually every 3 years, so like a really special reserve cigar. So this year it was the, H. Upman. But no, maybe that was last year. But one thing with the regionals and limited editions that's the biggest thing that I've noticed over the years since they started the program is the fact that they're making bigger cigars overall. The ring gauges are getting bigger. The links are getting usually bigger. So what started out as probably being more Coronas, Robustos, etc., is now really becoming Robusto Extras, Toros, items along those lines.
Seth, is that
Go ahead.
affecting the construction in a negative, positive, or is it the same?
I haven't smoked any of these regionals or the new limiteds, but what I can tell you is that with the increase in ring gauge and so forth that has been going in place with Habanos, I actually think that the construction's still fine. I think construction's really been improved since 2007, but they're making really good blends because they're blending it for the size. So these large 50 ring gauges are actually smoking really well, and they're not getting bland or losing any of those qualities, which could have been present if they just threw it out there. So I think they're doing a really good job with it.
Now, in terms of that, okay, the market that they're trying to target, it seems like I look at that very much like, hey, it's almost like, hey, we're eyeballing an American market, even though we can't sell these in America. So the question is, these things going to go over to Europe or Canada. How are they going to be received, you think? Because these are bigger cigars, especially Europe, I'm thinking more in particular.
Yeah, the biggest one is the new Cohiba Limitada, which has like a 58 ring gauge, which is huge in general, even I think for our market. But with it being a Cohiba, I really don't see too much of an issue. I think the price is going to be really high on it. But because it's a Cohiba, I think it's going to do well no matter where it goes. But for the American market, you're absolutely correct. People are going to go crazy over it. There's already fakes out there. I've already seen some photos of the fakes, and it's hysterical. And the fakes are getting better and better too. So I think it's not going to affect it that much. I think in general, people are looking for bigger cigars. They're just a couple years behind. I always think that when it comes to making a cigar which is similar to the American market, they're about 2 years behind.
So you're expecting that this trend, do you think it's a one-time year thing, or do you think this is something that we're going to see ongoing and will carry now over into some of maybe the more regular production Habanos lines?
I think it'll eventually carry over slightly. It really depends on when they add stuff. For instance, Oya just added their first new cigar, which I reviewed on Habanos Critic in about 6 years, which has got a 54 ring gauge, which is pretty big. The new Vigueros brand, which they relaunched, has some larger ring gauges in it. Even a regular production, Por Larnaga, they've added a Picadore, but it's more of kind of like a Robusto Corona Extra. So I think the trend is there. It's just a matter of when they add additional Vitolas to the brands. I think you've seen it with like the White Churchill, with Romeo, and Monte Cristo Double Edmundo now has a big Toro. So I think you'll see it. It's not going to be a huge amount, but every year you'll probably see an addition or so.
Okay. And have these new ones, have they hit the market yet, or are they in the process of rolling out?
Yeah, they're in the market. They rolled out. I
Okay.
mean, the limiteds are just coming out. The regionals are working their way out there, but the new brands came out. They were shown in February. They really started hitting probably late summer. So like Vigueros, the new Oya de Monterey, that's out as well, and the Por Larnaga as well.
So when you mentioned February, so they do it at the Habanos Festival, and then that's when they expect to see the new lines launched.
That's typically when Habanos does it. They don't have like, not like the American market where there's just announcements all the time. They do a 1 year release. They do a release right at the show, and they kind of get everyone interested in it at that point. That's when a lot of the big retailers are there and the distributors and so forth. So it's a good time to release it. I think they get it better than most cases. It's kind of like an IPCPR.
Right. So in terms of now stuff that's come out in the last, we always talk about, cigar of the year candidates, and we were bantering a few. We'll focus first on the Habanos market. In terms of Habanos that have been released this year, what are the standouts in terms of maybe what could be a Habanos or overall cigar of the year, even from Habanos?
In terms of new ones that I smoke, the Sirida, the La Olla de San Juan is an incredible new Oya. It's still young, but I think it's really great. Catfish is raving about the Vigueros. He says they're young, but they're going to show a lot of greatness. Other than that, I'm more looking at some of the older stuff. There's a regional from 2002-13 for the Netherlands, which I smoked, which is just incredible. But then again, I'm smoking a lot of more age stuff from 2007, 2008, which is terrific. So it's been aging, but the new Oya is really good, 10, 25 count boxes. So if you can get them, don't hesitate in picking them up, smoking some, and then aging a lot of them.
I mean, do you find that a lot of stuff from Habanos comes out young, or is it more of a problem we see maybe with the non-Habanos cigars?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because I think a lot of the older Habano smokers will say it is young. And to an extent, yes, they are correct. But I still think that a lot of the new stuff, especially from like 2010 onwards, it's young, but it's smoking really well. So it's going to age great. I just think that their quality has gone up dramatically. So yes, it's young, but it's going to smoke well, but you really need to see the potential in a couple years. I think Cohiba is always going to be one that smokes well with age. It's never going to be a good young cigar, but with age, it does show its greatness.
How does Habanos see when I look at like brands that are non-Habanos? You can very easily differentiate brands, and I'll use Davidoff as an example. Okay, Davidoff, it's very clear. They have the Davidoff brand. They have the Camacho now, which is positioned at bold. Avo's been kind of more that milder profile in there. Room 101's a little more edgy. How does Habanos differentiate brand to brand, even because they're kind of, it's one company, so to speak? How are they doing that?
They usually just go by like body, but it's all over the place just because they have different tiers of production level and its reach. Like Cohiba, which is a global brand, if you look at it, is actually really kind of four brands within the Cohiba brand. You have the Bejiques, you have the Maduro 5s, you have the Linea Classicas and the Linea 1492s, which is where all the Siglos are. And even in those brands, they're all very different. The Linea Classica, the Robustos, Liquito Especial, that Lancero, those are more medium full-bodied. The Bejiques are full-bodied. The Siglos are more aimed for the medium, and then the Maduro 5s just suck. So it's
really?
Just,
No, wait. No, hold on. The Maduro's like a Magico's Secretos sizes.
Yeah, the Genius as well. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't like those, Seth? Really?
No, man.
I
Do you like them?
I like the Magicos. I think the Magicos are really good.
Yeah, the middle size. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a short Robusto.
Yeah, the small size I'm not a big fan of, and I don't like the large one. I mean, the medium one I'm not a big fan of. In fact, I smoked it in Catfish, and even Jose Blanco started messaging me, asking me what the heck was wrong with me. So it's just not what I mean. They're not my cup of tea. I don't think Habanos really does a good job when it comes to Maduros.
Yeah. I like that Magicos though. Have you had the Magico size?
Yeah,
Not for
it's
you.
like it's in my review queue, which Catfish was like, why are we reviewing this? But it's coming up. But it's a very natural Maduro. That's how I classify them. And the
Yeah, don't
only
expect like a really
the
deep, rich, like Nicaraguan Maduro. Yeah, it's very different. It's not your typical
it's
Maduro.
very it's in the Maya Selva, that Maduro. That to me is almost like actually a successful and a good Cohiba Maduro 5. That Maya Selva Maduro coming out of Honduras, that's a really good one.
That's the one we smoked. Yeah.
That's a really good Maduro. That's not Cuban, but that's a good one.
We smoked that on the show, and I think we were real. It was a very impressive cigar. It threw me for. You had talked about it, so I knew you liked it, but it really threw me for a loop how good it was.
Every person who has smoked that has loved that cigar. And I've spoken to you guys I know like it. I know the cigar chat guys have really been blown away by it. Logan, who has got the world's worst palate on the face of the planet, said this is an incredible cigar.
Wow.
Which, I mean, when he says it, it shows how many people are like, wow, this is a great stick.
Interesting.
Seth, have you had any luck smoking Cuban cigar brands that aren't as popular? I know you talked about that on your show once. I was kind of intrigued about that because there are certain brands there's certain brands I gravitate to, right? Like, you can't go wrong with Partagas Series D number 4. You know, there's some Monte Cristos I really like. Of course, Cohiba. But there's a lot of other brands, of course. And, you know, you have to kind of buy a box of those for a lot of us here in the U.S. that acquire them through various means. So how do you know, like, which ones to take a chance on? And you had some ones that you kind of felt like you lost out on. But have you found new ones that are really good?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to experimenting and trying everything out there. And it really, I mean, for the Americans, and you're like, it's just, you go into it knowing, and you just kind of find which ones you really that stick to you. Juan Lopez is one of those brands that it doesn't matter which one you pick up. That's just a classic, great brand. Ramon Iones, these are all really small brands, which are fantastic. Catfish will say Kate Orsay is great. I'm not one that speaks for it. Por Laranaga, the Petite Coronas, if you age them for a bunch of years, they're terrific. I have a cabinet of 50 that have been aging since '07 that are just terrific.
Vegas. What about Vegas Robena? I really like Vegas Robena.
Yeah,
the Famosos are awesome. Very well rated here at the Stogie Geeks.
Yeah, that's a good brand. We actually just completed. We smoked the entire brand from the Don Alejandro down to the Famosos, including the Unico. So that's a good brand. It's not one of my favorite ones, but it's a good one. It does really well with age. San Cristobal, there's another really good brand.
Yep.
You get those Principes or Fuerzas. That's a really good flavor profile there.
Now, I wasn't impressed with the Sancho Panza Belicosos.
Me too. I was a little disappointed with that.
I was disappointed.
I think I just reviewed that, and I got help from Catfish. The one I smoked was really entertaining. It wasn't like mind blowing, but it was entertaining. But it's not a brand I care for.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Rafael Gonzalez. It's not really one for me. But it goes to show you. I mean, these aren't really big brands. There's only a couple offerings left. But they obviously do well in certain countries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, Habanos does a really good job of when it doesn't sell, they get rid of it. I mean, they don't waste that tobacco and the time on that stuff. If it's not moving, they're not going to make it.
Interesting. Are there any, so speaking of that, are there any brands that are kind of going out of circulation recently?
They just brought Vigueros back. So that one's really coming back. El Rey del Mundo is still doing its thing. A lot of the other ones are really still doing their thing. Diplomaticos, they just got to cut down just to the Pyramide. So I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, I didn't hear rave reviews about Diplomaticos.
You hear what?
I didn't hear rave reviews about Diplomaticos.
It's not a brand that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
To me, someone once classified it as kind of a stronger Monte Cristo, which I can kind of see what they're saying, but at the same time, I really don't think it's that great of a brand. But yeah, that's it's not one of those brands that I'm a big fan of. All the other ones are still pretty much going strong, and they've been cut here and there, but who knows what'll happen? I mean, they brought Vigueros back. They got rid of that for a little while. Trinidad is one of those brands
Yeah,
that I
they
think.
cut, right?
Yeah, they've cut it, and it's interesting. I don't think they'll ever get rid of it because it was brought with Cohiba. It was one of those brands that was like only given to foreign dignitaries and ambassadors, et cetera, for a while. So it's meaningful to the new Cuba, post-revolution Cuba, but who knows what they'll do.
Cool. So what's like your top favorite? If you were to buy a box of Cubans and it was the only box you could buy for the next month or two, what would you buy?
H. Upmann Sir Winston's.
Really interesting.
And it's a Churchill, and right now is not really the weather for it, but it's just that's my go-to smoke. I think Habanos knows how to blend Churchills and double Coronas, something that the non-Cuban market has struggled with for a while.
Yeah.
And the H. Upmann Sir Winston's just a great stick. Ramon Ionis Gigantes is another great one. I think I gave one to Coop a little while ago. That was pretty recent production.
I talked about it on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was great in that
Yeah.
double Corona.
Seth, if you were to recommend, if someone didn't want to go through the trouble of acquiring Cuban cigars, if you were to recommend 2 or 3 non-Cuban cigars that most closely represent that flavor and strength profile, what would you recommend?
Man, that's tough. Right now, it's got to be regular production, so that's kind of it's going to be crazy. But right now, the Señorial number 2, that torpedo from Jose Blanco, that Señorial, that's something to me that's just really good. It doesn't really show all those Cuban qualities, but it kind of does. Man,
I just told Stogie Sander about that last night too, because he had not smoked the number 2.
It's not one of those more popular sizes. It's an interesting one. The Warped La Colmena. That's a fun little smoke.
I need to get that for Paul. I need to get him.
Yeah.
One. Yeah. He needs to smoke that.
Which one is that again?
Warped Cigars La Colmena.
I haven't had that.
No, I know. I got to get you that.
Okay.
It's absolutely because I think that's a brand you're gonna really, really like, knowing your profile.
I mean, other than that, it's not really. It's a really good Maduro, and when I smoked it, I was like, wow, this is kind of. I think the Cohiba Maduro 5 could have been this if it was done right. That Maya Selva Maduro, it's really a Maduro that number 15 has really been popping. It's a great stick. That's a really nice Maduro offering just for all the Maduro guys out there. That's something I'd say give that a shot. But I mean, other than that, it's hard to really truly identify sometimes something that's really Cuban versus some of the other stuff that really isn't.
No, I agree.
Yep. One question I have, and hopefully I'm going to put you on a spot here. What was the highest cigar you rated on Habanos Critic this year?
Crap.
Crap, huh?
Geez, I think that, possibly that Oya. Because I look at it, the young rating and with age rating.
Okay. I'll make it easy. What's the best cigar that regardless wise, what's the best cigar you've assessed on Habanos Critic?
The best cigar I've assessed on Habanos Critic.
Yeah, in terms of you wrote a review and this was the best one.
Man, there's so many good. Gosh, we just went through the Ramon Ionis brand. I'm a big fan of that brand.
I've only ever had the specially selected.
Is the only one you've had?
That's the only one I've had for Ramon Ionis because I like that one, so I just keep buying that one. And I smoked one the other night, and it was off the charts. It was awesome.
Get Coop to give me your address so I can remedy that issue.
Okay.
We'll do a little trade.
Just send it to me. When I send the next shipment up to him, I'll get it to him. If I don't smoke it first,
works.
But I'll get it to him.
It's tough, man. I'd have to go back through all of them. I'm sorry. I'm terrible about remembering what I reviewed, but I mean, H. Upman's the new Oya is really I think is going to be terrific down the road. Catfish and I are really big H. Upmann fans, so when it comes to the H. Upmann brand, that's a great one. Ramon Ionis, there's a bunch of good ones. They're all different. I'm terrible about remembering all this good stuff. One non-Cuban, I'll tell you, you want one non-Cuban that's really, this is a retail exclusive. And I've talked to Coop about this multiple times, and Coop knows about it. Skip Martin's Intemperance, the BA that AW Skeet for Cigar Hustler.
Is that in the price pack?
It is. I
Yep.
threw one in there.
Okay.
I threw one in there. That is one hell of a cigar. And it's,
which-
in my opinion,
Was it a special one for a store? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's special for a store. I originally Skip, the ones I got, I didn't get from the store, I got from Skip. But this is a hell of a Lonsdale. I think it's the best cigar that Skip has made. Not line, not brand, best single stick. I think the Aquitaine's the better line, but this is an amazing cigar. So if you haven't smoked that one, go to Cigar Hustler and get some of these because they're great. Coop, you have one, don't you?
Yep. Or enter our contest, which we'll
Yeah,
talk about at the end.
Yep. And you can win one.
You can win one with 9 other unbelievable cigars. I'm going to read them off again real quick. And the Intemperance AWS we just talked about, an inaugural EPC 2009.
Yep.
And a Limitada 2010.
Which is a great one. That's probably one of the best.
And I'm gonna save these two for last. I'm gonna skip real quick. A Tatuaje Petit Lancero, black label. A Tatuaje Mummy, a Viaje Super Lance, and a Viaje the Atlantic Cigar Lancero exclusive. And then 2 cigars, which you and I have talked about. One of them in particular. The 2 Sindicato cigars, the Natural and the Maduro.
Yeah.
Seth, that
great.
Maduro. Okay, now Paul hasn't smoked these yet. I know that. Tell us a little about those cigars for people who might not be familiar with those brands, because I want to hear, because I know your thoughts on them, and I just want folks to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, the Sindicatos, which they've now called their flagship line, which they should have launched with, which we could spend an hour talking about.
Absolutely, they should have.
Are the brand new lines from Sindicato, cigar group, and they're the first time that the company's paired up with Casa Fernandez. So they're using all that Aganorsa tobacco and also Turin Mexican San Andreas, but the Sindicato Natural is just that Corojo classic Aganorsa blend that's made for Sindicato, which is a terrific offering. Which when they released it this year, I think you'll agree with me, Coop. It's like, wow, this is the best thing Sindicato's done, and this is a great cigar. They've really made something terrific here. And then recently they just released the Sindicato Maduro, which is that Mexican San Andreas, totally different blend, completely different blend, and is probably the best example of Mexican San Andreas I've had this year.
I was blown away by that cigar.
Yeah, I've smoked in the Toro, the Churchill, the Gordo, which the Gordo I threw in there, which I originally smoked, which is terrific. I mean, it's a great 6x60. And I threw it in there just to show when someone's like, wow, this is 6x60, but that is incredible 6x60. They're just 2 amazing lines, and it's one of those things. If I was Sindicato, I'd get rid of the other 3 and just keep with these 2 because they're phenomenal.
Yeah, no.
I can't do anything but praise that. Those are two great sticks.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you that when you and I like the Natural, and I think you and I were looking at it a little bit with a cautious eye with the Maduro, with the San Andreas, but Casa Fernandez, when it comes to working with that San Andreas wrapper, I've said
the best ones out there.
They know how to do, and you see it in Dion's lines with Illusione. I even see it with some of Andre's Maduros, which I think Andre's done some very good Maduros with Viaje. And then Casa Fernandez's Maduros, I was talking to Stogie Santa, and he had not tried the Reserva Maduro, and I said, I got to get that to him.
Yeah.
But talk a little about Aganorsa tobacco, because I think you and I have had a lot of conversations, and you have some good thoughts about what, when you talk about Aganorsa tobacco, what is that and why is it so good?
God, I mean, Aganorsa, Paul Palmer, Eduardo Fernandez, all those guys, they really have the right people working with tobacco down in Nicaragua. I think that's one of the differences is they have a hell of a labor force down there who understands growing tobacco and working with it. I mean, they focus on Corojo and Criollo. And, they know how to ferment that correctly and really get some terrific blends out there. And, they're vertically integrated as a company, so they handle everything. And because of that, I think they're able to offer great blends at terrific prices and deliver quality. And they stand behind everything they make, whether it bears the Casa Fernandez name or not. I mean, the new Illusione Fume d'Amore is an incredible cigar.
We were talking about that early this morning.
Which I've raved about. I remember I told you about it, Cuban. I was like, this is the cigar. Yeah. And Paul Palmer even said to me, I'm loving this cigar. I can't put it down. And yes, he's using his Aganorsa tobacco, but when you see him smoking this and loving and talking about it, it just goes to show that he really loves the cigar and that he is getting quality Aganorsa tobacco, so that they're just not hoarding all the good stuff for Casa Fernandez, but they're distributing good tobacco to everyone who's working with them. And I think the same goes for, that original Dante. That was a great Mexican San Andreas offering.
Yeah. Paul's done Paul Palmer's and Casa Fernandez, they have been mentors to all these. There's a lot of brands that have come into that factory, and they've made cigars for them. And I think they've done a great job at mentoring these brands, giving them good quality tobacco, and just doing a great. I mean, I don't think any other factory is really doing that right now at the scale they're doing it. There's some factories that are producing good blends for other manufacturers. We just talked about Debonair doing Paul Joyal cigar, which is excellent. But Casa Fernandez, at the scale they're doing it right now, it's very, very high.
Yeah, I mean, they're working in. I mean, you could really say three factories if you include Raíces, because they're still working on Epernay with Dion up there. But they have incredible factories that their quality is incredible for construction. The tobacco is great. And, look at even their blends. I mean, Casa Fernandez, you have the Miami Reserva, whether it's a Maduro or the Corojo. You have the Miami. You have Casa Fernandez Arsenio, which is a more affordable Robusto, which is terrific. You have that Casa Fernandez Lancero, who, if no one smoked that Lancero, it's probably one of the best Lanceros on the market.
Yeah, I haven't had that one.
I have to get you guys some Casa Fernandez. I was,
up here. The Arsenio. Yeah, you don't find him up
Rhode
here.
Island. It's not up here. It's kind of a
It's a Casa Fernandez is probably. I mean, Coop will tell you, I've been a fan of them since 2010, probably when they really came in. It's one of those brands. They focus so much on people like Illusione and all these companies who work with them, that Aganorsa tobacco, that they kind of take a back seat when you come to picking up that Casa Fernandez brand. And there is some confusion there, but once you smoke it, you're like, wow, this is incredible stuff. And the pricing is just fantastic for it. Even the new JFR is a great cigar.
Yeah, you and I smoked that as well. So, in terms of now kind of looking at the non-Habanos market, we were talking about this morning when we had Paul Joyal, Mark Jr., and Stogie Sandor. What are some of the standout cigars you've seen released this year?
I mean, Illusion, the Fume d'Amore, is one that really stuck from the beginning.
I know Paul. Wow. We have to get Paul on board with that, but I think
I'm not sold on it.
But he's not there yet. But I think.
But Stogie Sandor and I said it needed a little time when it first. We felt it needed a little time at first.
There's some right next door, actually.
Oh, we may have to.
We have to go shopping.
Yeah, we'll put it on the account.
The new satin glove from.
We were talking about that too.
I like that one. I smoked that one. I'm on board with that one.
That's a nice smoke.
I smoked it yesterday, and I liked it.
And I just smoked it. I smoked this yesterday, but it's been resting in my humidor for 90 days. Is the Tierra Vulcan from Mombacho. Completely different cigar. I called you about this yesterday. Completely different cigar.
And they're coming on the show.
Okay, good.
With cigars coming up here, so you'll be able to smoke that. Yeah, I was worried about that cigar. I was worried about that cigar when it came out. I told you that. I was worried. I said, man, and Skip's distributing them, but it turned. Yeah, everyone's been saying that.
So, I mean, I smoked some early versions of the Neanderthal. I think when the Neanderthal comes out, I think some people are really going to like it. It's Casa Fernandez has been doing some good stuff. I mean, you start looking at this, though, and you start seeing the same people. And there's a reason I think that Luzione, Cas Fernandez, all these people are really making headways. And it's because of the tobacco involved. Seniorale is a really great first line. I think it's really aged really well. I've smoked the 65th, actually. I put the review up, which is supposed to be coming out mid-November if Jose doesn't smoke them all. And that is an incredible perfecto that I think everyone will love, and it's really going to show the greatness of Dominican tobacco.
Yeah, Stogie Santa, I was talking to him last night, and he was getting, I think, a little bit of a wet spot thinking about that. So
It's if he's not blown away by it, I would be shocked, because it's really an incredible stick. It's phenomenal.
And that's the 60. Is it? What's the name of it? Full name?
It's the 65th anniversary, but it's
from
really
Jose Blanco.
From Jose Blanco, but it's really for his birthday.
Okay.
But,
yeah, it's not the company's.
Yeah, we had a little talk about, but it is. It's a completely different blend than the Señoro, and that it's a Dominican Puro he did.
Yeah, and it's basically, there's a lot of Corojo, there's a lot of stuff from La Canela in there. He's using, it's all his cousin's tobacco. And a lot of people don't know that about, Blanco and his relationship with Tabar Cabama and just Yoshi Blanco and La Canela, and the fact that, everyone thinks of, when they think of La Canela, they think of La Flor Dominicana and all the LG series and all the stuff that comes out of that farm, those farms. But what people don't understand is that they're really kind of Yoshi Blanco's farms, that he owns the majority of them.
Cool.
Absolutely. How about anything else kind of stand out at you, maybe that didn't come out this year that you tried for the first time, discovered for the first time,
Yeah, gosh, the Joel Sherman's a really good one. That's a good stick.
Yeah,
the Casada 40th, the Corona,
those are my two.
Special one. Man, I probably smoked a couple some. When we do what we do, I don't know about you, Coop, but you kind of find yourself not being able to always, at least as an individual reviewer, you find yourself, it's sometimes hard to go back to these cigars that you've loved from previous years or a couple years ago, just because there's so much new stuff out there, and we're kind of asked to review it, or you want to review it, and you get it up. So it's like you spend so much time with all this new stuff that you forget about these things from a year or 2 years ago. So they just kind of sit in your humidor. And then the time when you really revisit that stuff is, November, December, when you're preparing your top 25 list.
Exactly. So Seth, we're doing the show in support of cigar rights right now. What are your thoughts right now, just in general? Where things are heading right now. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it doesn't look positive. I'm hoping that, obviously people need to get proactive and voice for their rights. I think, in my opinion, I think we entered into the fight too late. I think Glenn Loop said it. I think we should have been more involved earlier on. I think we were too relaxed for a long time. I don't think enough retailers, and I will put this on the retailers, I don't think enough retailers are voicing up to their local representatives, and they need to speak with them. I know Glenn Loop mentioned a North Carolina senator earlier, which she's probably against it, but I can guarantee there's a lot of North Carolina tobacconists who didn't voice up to help CRA and say, hey, let's go schedule a meeting with her. She has to do it, but I don't think there's enough tobacconists who did it, and that falls on the tobacconists.
I'll tell you something, and a couple of these guys are friends of mine, and they're going to be mad with me hearing this, who are tobacconists. At IPCPR, when the CRA meeting was going on, they were at the slot machines, and I'm not gonna pick on my two friends because I think they were they really needed a little education, and I kind of educated them. Believe me on that. I gave them a real. But in general, that's what I saw going on at IPCPR this year, and that was wrong. This is your livelihood, and people needed to be out there.
And a lot of it falls, and to be honest, and I'm not trying to, I think they put a lot on the consumers, which, yes, we are the consumers, but at the same time, constituents, our representatives, they want to hear from the businesses.
They do want to hear from the business.
They want to hear from the business because it's going to affect their business, which is going to affect the district. It's not just consumers. They want to hear from them, so they have to speak up and say something about that, which I don't think they have. I also think to some extent that my opinion is we've gotten to the point maybe we need to not play so much offense, but let's play defense and let's try and protect the rights we do have, and let's not try and go make a big deal about certain things and just say, okay, that is what it is. Let's look at the big picture. But that's neither here nor there. So I'm hoping for the best. It's just scary. It's a tough time right now.
Yeah, and I got to say, you made a really good point, because I've been a big Kay Hagan basher, right? And not to get political, but the point you made, possibly if more people from the constituency were doing this, and I don't know. It seemed like a lot of people were complacent in North Carolina.
Yeah,
You're right. You're 1,000% right on that, and that's
I mean, you want to get mad at, and you can get mad at them for it, but it's one of those things. How many of these guys did you see actually up there? I mean, he said it. Skip Martin and the guys from Ezra's Island were up there in D.C. I mean, these guys are from Texas. Did they have a retailer with them? Where's their retailer?
Right, it's a fair point.
Where's some of these retailers?
It's a very fair point.
I'm not trying to retail bash, but there's my 2 cents on that.
All right, so Seth, first, we're gonna thanks a lot. We're gonna wrap it up right now. But before we go, how do you want to handle this contest? You donated.
There's a little raffle on there. You go to Seth's Humidor. It's going through the entire weekend. It's basically follow Stogie Geeks, follow Cigar Coop, friend Stogie Geeks on Facebook. And then I'll do a drawing, Monday morning. It's just a random raffle copper thing, but it's just to promote you guys and just have a good time with it.
Well,
thanks so much, Seth.
Seth, we really appreciate it. Appreciate the friendship and the support as always. And I know we'll be talking when I drive back down to North Carolina. So
man.
Thank you
Drive
so much.
safe. Have a good rest of the show. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Seth. Take care.
Take care, Seth.
You too.
And with that, we're going to take a short break and come back with
Phil Zengi.
Phil Zengi will be coming up next. So
Oh,
go
boy.
anywhere. Stay tuned.